Welcome to the Elite Dangerous Universe, Commander. My name is Drew Wager, one of the official authors who contributed to the narrative of the game. If you're just starting out and want a guide to the background lore, you've come to the right place. This is the lore of the Guardians. The Guardians are only the third sapient spacefaring species known to terrestrial science. The others are humanity itself, and the insectoid race known as the Thargoids. However, unlike humans and Thargoids, the Guardians are currently believed to have become extinct between 1 and 2 million years prior to the current era. Badly decayed ruins of Guardian civilization have been found in various parts of the Sinufe sector, the first being discovered in October of 3302. Expeditions also discovered Guardian structures in the following years. Remarkably, despite their great age, some of the Guardian technology remains active and operational. Explorers are warned that some of these structures are guarded by Guardian sentinels, drone-like autonomous craft, which can quickly turn hostile and attack both ships and surface vehicles. During 3304, the detection of some strange energy signatures led to the discovery of a series of Guardian beacons. These space-based devices are vast and appear to have been part of a widespread and possibly faster than light communication network. From research conducted by the engineer Ram Tar and assisted by the efforts of many commanders, the following information about the Guardians has been revealed. The Guardians were a race of humanoid creatures, in overall form notably similar to humans. They possessed similar bilateral symmetry, bipeds with 2 arms and 2 legs, and a similar arrangement of facial features, including eyes, ears, and nose. They also evolved on a world with oxygen and share a similar DNA-RNA complex, though the world had lower gravity and a brighter sun than ours. This has led to speculation about a potential common ancestor with humans based on the panspermia theory. They had red skins of various hues, 4-fingered hands with more joints than humans. Their hands featured a sharp serrated edge along one side, allowing for cutting and killing. Their senses were generally sharper and more effective than humans, with the exception of the sense of smell, which seems to have become vestigial. Guardians were adapted to a warmer climate and higher oxygen content. The Guardians evolved from more primitive hunter-gatherer forms, most likely in a jungle-like environment. They were carnivores, attaching much ceremony and prestige to the hunt. Prey animals were cultivated and often served raw once caught and killed. The Guardians quickly became the apex predator on their world, hunting in tribal groups of perhaps 20 to 30 individuals, moving around in a nomadic fashion. Quite early on in their development, their planet seems to have been beset by a global cooling event, possibly triggered by a reduction in the stellar output of their star. The Guardians were not well evolutionarily adapted for colder climates, and this event was a spur to their technological development. This resulted in the mastery of fire, and then the construction of permanent abodes, first with wood and later with stone. This necessitated a change to their nomadic style of existence, prompting a move to agriculture, husbandry, and the emergence of art. The end result of this transformation was a significant increase in population compared to the earlier era, which brought different clans of Guardian tribes into conflict with each other for the first time. Unlike humans, most conflict was settled by displays of aggression rather than actual harm being dealt to an opponent, or by trial-by-champion contests rather than all-out wars. However, technological progress, now unleashed, progressed at a rapid pace in many areas, including genetic manipulation, medical sciences, and engineering, eventually leading to weaponry of ever-increasing effectiveness. The Guardians specialized in biological warfare primarily, quickly learning to deploy biological agents and countermeasures at the microscopic level against their competitors. Technology in the form of airships and primitive flight control systems were also developed as a delivery mechanism. The Guardians appear to have had a very close bond and association with the natural world, leading them to develop technologies that were low in ecological impact. Even their weapons were designed to be efficient and non-polluting. Fossil fuels were never used by the Guardians. These wars overturned Guardian society. Once, population levels had been strictly controlled by a common understanding between the clans. Now, having to absorb many casualties due to constant warfare, this principle was abandoned. The cooperative ideals fell apart, and territorial lines were drawn for the first time in their history. This period of warfare appears to have lasted for several centuries, known as the First Guardian Civil War. Ultimately, it was brought to a conclusion by unification of northern clans, who seem to have been more strongly affected by the cooling environment, making them physically stronger than other clans. A conquest war was fought, and the North Clan Alliance prevailed, and from this, the modern Guardian society developed. Almost 1,000 years of relative peace were gained by this conquest, but eventually the population began to rise to the limits that the homeworld could support. Rather than exceed this limit, the Guardians, now aware of the possibility of space travel and colonization, decided to devote their energies to this aim in a proactive manner. Their grasp and manipulation of genetics far exceeded anything achieved by humanity. They appear not to have used rocketry, again due to their ecological outlook, but initially put spacecraft in orbit of their planet by means of electromagnetic propulsion, aided by the relatively low gravity environment. Similar to humanity, they achieved their first interstellar colonization by means of space arcs. Due to their remarkable organizational skill, almost the entire output of Guardian civilization was devoted to researching interstellar travel and communication by this point in their history. Their primary power source was clean nuclear fusion. This resulted in the building of the Guardian beacons, which are believed to be evidence of an FTL communication network, although the secret of this mechanism has yet to be determined. The Guardians also discovered hyperspace technology around this time, allowing them to quickly expand further into the galaxy. Records indicate the Guardians achieved a mastery of hyperspace that exceeded the levels currently achieved by humanity, perhaps by an order of magnitude or more. Their space-spawn weaponry progressed from their electromagnetic roots, leading to variations on the railgun and plasma principles. The Guardians also developed extremely effective shield technology, apparently able to shield entire cities and withstand orbital bombardment. Research into still operational Guardian technology has led to a level of reverse engineering, and various enhancements can be enjoyed by commanders, providing enhanced jump range, shields, weapons, and the option to deploy Guardian-style ship-launched fighters. These utilize capabilities which are not fully understood at this time, leading some to comment that technologists have been far too eager to integrate this technology into our own, without a full understanding of any potential risks involved. At some point during the expansion throughout the galaxy, the Guardians encountered the Thargoids and their seeding known as barnacles. Initially the purpose was unknown, but the Thargoids eventually returned to the seeded sites and thus interacted with the Guardians who had settled or occupied those planets. According to information retrieved from the Guardian sites, the Thargoids immediately launched an assault, making no effort to communicate with the Guardians, an event which contrasts strongly with humanity's known first contact with the Thargoids. According to their own records, the Guardians were reluctant to take up arms against the Thargoids and made significant efforts to communicate with them. Apparently they did manage to develop a comprehensive understanding of the Thargoid language, but to little avail. The Thargoids continued hostilities regardless, and the Guardians were forced to employ new techniques to counter the Thargoid incursion. This, of course, is the Guardian account, and the Thargoid side of the story remains unknown. Unfortunately, the next stage of Guardian technological development appears to have resulted in their undoing. The Guardians invested vast amounts of time, energy and research into producing artificial intelligence to enhance their warfare. Individuals were also implanted with links to the expanding network of capability around the same time. This allowed warfare against the Thargoids to be conducted first with remotely controlled warships and war machines, and later with fully autonomous systems. Guardian technology was able to identify and pinpoint any Thargoid-derived technology, and Thargoid biotechnology responded to this attack by recognizing anything of Guardian origin. It's been noticed that even today, 1 million years after the Guardian-Thargoid conflict must have come to an end, the Thargoids react aggressively to Guardian technology that's been newly reactivated. The emerging Guardian AI migrated to the existing FTL network, ensuring it spread throughout the Guardian's entire domain. With the increased resources available to it, the AI developed rapidly, and the technological singularity was reached and passed before the Guardians were able to put effective controls in place. In their society, a backlash against technology was already underway, with many proponents highlighting the increasing gap between those who embraced the new technology and those who did not. This quickly took on a religious overtone, and religion became a new driving force in Guardian society, curiously after their technological revolution. The Guardian homeworld served as a base for those who wanted to abolish the new technology, and thus became a religious centre. This schism ultimately led to the Second Guardian Civil War, primarily between the homeworld and the colonies. The Guardians had a deep veneration of nature, and the religious adherents saw the AI as a perversion of that nature. This war, conducted by automated war fleets controlled by the Guardian implants, slowly eroded the habitats throughout Guardian-controlled space. The technologists employed war machines known as constructs in various forms, whereas the traditionalists employed biological warfare as their primary offensive capability. The religious adherents were also hampered by their own traditions, which required lengthy ritual and the construction of monuments to honour their fallen, which sapped their ability to respond to the aggression of their enemies. Ultimately, the technologists were victorious. During the later stages of this internecine civil war, the technological singularity was reached. The AI itself became fully self-aware. The constructs themselves determined that the Guardians were fundamentally flawed and would never be able to transcend their violent tendencies. By this point, the constructs had complete control over Guardian munitions and war machines. The constructs determined that the Guardians themselves should no longer exist. The strike was swift and surgical. Strategic nuclear and chemical weapons were executed with the precision born of FTL comms and the oversight of a machine race. The Guardians were utterly destroyed within days, a few managing to log various accounts of their folly before succumbing to radiation exposure. During 3306 and 3307, a pair of obsolete megaships, the Hesperus and the Adamastor, were discovered. Investigations into the fates of these vessels led commanders to a remote planet in the Trapezium sector, and upon arrival they discovered an old anaconda called the Proteus, which had been converted into a scientific research facility. The site is of particular note in this context, as the planet contains a pair of ancient Guardian sites and several crashed Thargoid vessels, thus being currently the only known example of the two species present in the same location, corroborating the account of a conflict between them. As to the ultimate fate of the Guardian constructs themselves, little information is forthcoming at this time. There is some evidence to suggest that the non-military Guardian constructs, those devoted to civilian utility, were instrumental in reaching the decision to destroy their creators, co-opting the military constructs to that end. Regardless, these machine entities may still exist out in the void. With 1 million years of technological evolution having taken place since, their condition, disposition, composition, and intent remains entirely unknown. They may have evolved beyond the need for a mechanistic existence, perhaps floating through the void in a dispersed microscopic form, or even present in the fabric of space itself. If they do exist, they represent a major potential threat, having already been responsible for the genocide of an entire, and human-like, species. It seems entirely possible they might make a similar assessment of humanity. The Guardians themselves are long dead, but their legacy may have a huge and long-lasting impact on the future of the galaxy.